because I think that a lot of, hey, YouTube, we're live here and on Instagram. So when we looking back and forth, I actually think that a lot of teachers are doing too much. Now, you let me know if you're a teacher or leader in the comments. Drop a comment if you feel like you're doing a lot, if you feel like you're working a lot, if you feel like you're close to or perhaps at capacity. Like I said, let me know where you're coming from. Here, I'm in LA, so it's only 5:30. I know I have some East Coast people that it's a little bit late, but maybe you're watching this on replay. I just think, not I think, okay? I'm trying to avoid I think. This is actually what I know and what I've been seeing. I have seen teachers and leaders doing a lot. And I don't know that doing more and just like more is more for more sake is really working effectively right now. I actually think that doing more is giving us less results. Oh, hey, someone's in Maryland. That's awesome. I love Maryland. Great food out there. I think that we're doing too much. And what I mean by that is y'all know I work with schools and I work with pre-service teachers and districts. So I've seen like a lot of different iterations of this. And when I talk to people consistently and like I'll look at their schedule, I have principals that literally cannot even get to my email. Like they will email me back at 11 o'clock at night because they literally do not have time during the day to get to their emails. And I see teachers and I see them working. I mean, they're doing all the things during their contracted hours. And really what led me to believe this was after observing over and over again, the schools that I was making progress with were not the schools that brought me on as somebody that was going to have them do a bunch more things and add a bunch to their plate. It was actually the schools that got really strategic where I was getting results because we weren't just doing more for more sake. So what I mean when I say teachers are doing too much and we don't need to be doing more, I have friends that are teachers and friends that are leaders. So I get both sides of the story. I hear teachers all the time talking about, like, well, what we really need is something off of our plate. And then I hear leaders saying, like, well, how could we take this off of your plate? Because this is what we're having to do. It's coming very top down. It's very interesting to be positioned where you can truly see both sides of that argument. And I think that especially the online discourse right now is very divisive. It's very like, like teachers versus admin, teachers versus parents. I don't think that that's a productive conversation. But what I have seen that's really, really working is like when we sit back and we think about like, are we just doing anything? Or are we doing things that make sense and that work strategically? And before you rush to answer and say, like, yeah, like the things that we're doing make sense, I don't know. I don't know that they do. I'm going to be honest. I think that a lot of folks are doing entirely too much, not doing it strategically, not doing it intentionally. And it's just more is more. And I feel like leaders are grasping at straws because we're like, we have to do something because the scores are down. Okay. The kids are not all right. Have y'all been noticing how every news outlet like has sensationalist education stories? Like it seems like every week. Let me know if you notice this. I have seen the kids can't read story. I have seen the kids aren't reading book stories. I have seen the cell phone stories. Like we're getting a lot of news coverage on the ineffectiveness of education right now. So you can't turn on your TV without hearing about like what's going on. So obviously that's put in the fire under leaders and teachers to be like, oh my God, we have to do more. We have to do more. If you just came in on Instagram, hello, hello, let me know where you're coming in from. We're asking the very important question is, are you doing too much? I think you are. And I think that we feel like we're panicking and we have to just do anything. And I don't think that we're doing things well and we're doing things with strategy. So what I have been doing with folks is actually like sitting down and crossing things off, like changing things and not things that like lead to, you being out of compliance because there is a lot to do as a teacher, especially because, we're not talking about how the tier one is like what tier two was like 10 years ago. Like that's a whole other side conversation that we do have to have. But tier one is really like the basics are not the basics anymore. And so it feels like teachers are doing a lot because you have to do a lot to keep up with just the average. I mean, average in the sense of like most common, like way that they show up. You have to keep up with the average student in your classroom. That takes more work than it used to. So you are doing more in the classroom and leaders are doing more because the scores are lower, the kids are having more challenges. Did y'all see about that teacher that resigned? because of behavior, teachers across the country are resigning or not coming back because of behavior. So obviously everybody's like panicking, like, what are we going to do? And they're adding one more thing, another acronym, another this, another that. I don't know that that's the approach anymore, y'all. I really think that we are doing too much because we're not doing things well and strategic. So, what I've been encouraging people to do is instead of adding another thing and thinking that some magical solution is going to come down the pipeline, because I've been in education long enough to see the pendulum swing back and forth. I was here for when it was all literacy, and then I was here for STEM. STEM mania. Let me know if you were here during like the STEM mania of like the 2000s when it was like everything had to be STEM. I have seen us go back and forth on that. Like I've seen us go back and forth on, on no technology in the classroom, all the technology in the classroom. We're just kind of doing whatever because I think we're panicking as opposed to doing things thoughtfully and doing things well. And so, what I really want the leaders, especially listening to this, to think about is your teachers are communicating with you like they cannot take one other thing. And I love, and like, don't get me wrong, I love the processes. I actually like MTSS. My thing with MTSS is I think that it's not being implemented well, and that's why so many people hate it. Well, I mean, I talk to a lot of people that don't like it. You can let me know if you like it, but a lot of people don't care for MTSS. They don't care for restorative practices because it's not done well. So we're adding whatever new shiny ball comes in education. And I really think it's time for us to sit down and audit our list and talk about the strategy behind some of these things. If I'm doing 30 things, I'm not doing 30 things well. I think a lot of our schools need to like focus on a couple instructional levers, a couple culture levers, and be really thoughtful about rolling those out well and being really committed to it, right? I want a campaign, I want a rollout. I want your whole school to be tapped in and bought into something and you doing it with gusto. Like I want to see teachers committing to the bit on some of this stuff. And as a leader, that means you have to commit to the bit as well. But if you commit to doing a couple of things well, you will most certainly see more outcomes than if we just add every single little thing. So it's interesting because people contract me to do the joy work, and people will be like, "Oh, like Deanna's going to bring in all this stuff about joy." Actually, the first thing that I do is figure out what can we get rid of, because the teachers are not going to be joyful if I just come in and give them 37,000 more things to do. So I start by trying to figure out how can we pare down and audit your list and do things strategically. But I really want us to have this frame, especially as we're looking forward to closing out the end of the year. End of the year is going to be here before we know it, and I know that you have some students that have really really stubborn growth, that are not growing the way that you would like them to grow. And we have state testing and all the end of the year mania. You got like 5 6 weeks with some of your kids to really make some progress. I want you to think about that. So instead of doing another thing, how can you be strategic and double down on what's working and actually use the data to figure out how to get those students to grow before the end of the year? I don't want to see schools continuously just kind of like spinning their wheels, trying something, switching it off, trying something, switching it off, and teachers getting burnt out and tired and just over it because they're over like a new fad every day. They're not trying to do that. So I wanted to just I'm here to communicate that we have to have a pruning sense as well on some of our initiatives. And I want you to take a step back and think about if you are doing too much and what it really looks like to do things well, strategically and sustainably at your site. And this is especially for my school leaders, but this is for the teachers as well, right? If you don't have a plan, if you haven't kind of like backwards planned, I don't know like if y'all were taught this, but in my credentialing program, one of the first things that we were taught was backwards planning. So if I'm backwards planning right now, I'm looking how many weeks do I have until the end of school? What is the growth that needs to happen in that time? I'm backwards planning where my kids need to grow each and every week, what I need to see, those targeted skills each and every week for them to be able to get where they need to go by the end of the year. That's backwards planning. If you're a school leader, you got to be looking at the end of the year. You've got to probably observe your teachers one more time. You've got to hire more teachers. You've got to look at the end of the year and say, where do I need my people to go? And what are the steps? So now is the time to engage in that strategic backwards planning. It's not time to add a whole bunch of other things. Again, you might be doing too much. You might be doing too much. And so I'd love to help people with that work. So like I said, send me a DM or just, respond in a comment and say like, hey, I'm thinking about adding this and let's chat about it, because I think it's so important to have, to have a discernment about what you're doing and what you're bringing into the classroom. And I've been doing a lot of observations lately. So I've seen like 5 or 6 different schools and everyone is working hard, you know. And that's the thing. Like I think sometimes because of where education is and the growth that we want to see that we're not seeing from a lot of our students, it's easy to jump and say, well, the teachers aren't doing this or the leaders aren't doing this. Everybody's working hard. It's not about if it's not about who's not, no one is slacking. I'll say that. The problem is really about what we're doing strategically. And I think that's important to note, because when things like start to get heavy, the first thing that people want to do is point fingers. Like parents want to point fingers at teachers and say like, oh, the teachers aren't doing this. And then leaders point fingers and teachers point fingers back and forth. I don't think any of that is helpful, because I think everybody's working their took us off. It's just about like we are not doing it well and strategically. So I want to leave you with that food for thought, is that maybe you're doing too much. Maybe you need to, instead of do more, you need to get more strategic. Instead of adding another thing, you need to implement what you have with fidelity, with gusto, with commitment, and then see what results you're getting that way, as opposed to adding another acronym. The acronyms are they're very titillating. You see the acronyms and you want to bring in that acronym. You don't always need another acronym. Sometimes it's really just about doing things more strategically, more intentionally in your space, because our teachers are getting burnt out, and adding another thing won't help that. So a sense of discernment about what we're doing, and are we really doing things that are effective, that's really going to move the needle for our students, is a question that I want everybody to kind of sit with and marinate on a little bit. Especially right now, your capacity is limited by just what's going on in the world. So teachers are already carrying the mental and emotional and physical load of absorbing what's happening. And then on top of that, you're doing all of the things, you're doing all of the things at the school building. So thinking about scaling back, thinking about being strategic, thinking about doing things well. Oh, hi, Miss Frazzled. We have the same book. That's so funny. Is it We Want to Do More Than Survive? This is, if you, that's my other piece of advice. Read Bettina Love if you haven't. Revisit that. It's an amazing one. So thinking about like scaling back and paring back, I'll tell you one other thing that I'm telling a lot of my principals to do is to actually scale back on observations and switch out those observations for teaching takeovers. I'm a big believer of, as opposed to just coming in to observe, why not go in and take over the classroom? Go in there and model teach. And you can model teach and model for your teachers, or you can just model teach and give them a break, right? Switch that out for one of your observations that week. That's an example of like an added layer of stress that will benefit you by switching that out. Less observations, more takeovers, more model teaching. It's great for you as a leader, because you get to practice and feel what it's like to be with the students, and you'll sharpen your skills. And then it's great for the teachers, because they'll be able to see what you're doing, especially if it's effective, and you'll be able to model that. So swapping out those observations for takeovers is great. Swapping out some of the like heavy sit and get PD. Now, I obviously I'm biased because PD is kind of my job, but I don't think PD is awful. I think PD works when it's not a boring sit and get. So swap out that sit and get PD that you have and think about some strategic work time. Now, here's what I will say that can be a little bit controversial with the teachers. I'm not the biggest fan of just full on loosey goosey work time, because I think for some teachers, if they're really on it, they can use it really well. But for other teachers, they need a little bit more structure. So, if you might be doing too much, cut that sit and get PD. Don't have not nary one more person that's going to be dry to sit up there and talk to the teachers. Super boring. And have some targeted work time, some strategic planning time, some time for folks to roll up their sleeves and get in there, but really, really targeted. Because again, I think that just like I'm giving you an hour back, I'm biased as a neurodivergent teacher, but sometimes I feel like a little bit more structure could be helpful there. So thinking about two things that you could do if you're doing too much: rolling back those observations, doing a takeover instead, and rolling back those sit and get PDs and having some strategic planning and work time is a great way to do that. The other thing that you could think about is, especially if you're a leader, right, building out a better strategy so that it's more sustainable to handle your family and parent communication. That can be quite a time suck. It's important to build relationships with our families, but if you have like really difficult families, just take that off the teacher's plate. You can handle it. You can lead that work so that they're able to finish strong and get the instructional time that they need to close the gap for your students. If you have not had like a really good data unpack protocol, now's your time to do it, because again, you need to backwards plan. You need to refresh those backwards plans for the year. So those are just a couple of ideas. I do think, like I said, I think we're doing a little bit too much. Not every trend in education do we need to adopt. I think it's about doing what we're doing better, what we're doing smarter, and what we're doing more strategically. So, um, as we're ending out and closing out Black History Month, I also, of course, would be remiss if I did not say, as you're leaving Black History Month, that doesn't mean that you have to leave thinking about these topics. And also, more than just a craftivity or a festival, I'm curious, like how we've been having strategic conversations about our Black students, their success, access to learning, how we're engaging those families, right? Black History Month isn't just about talking about Black history, it's about supporting Black futures. So make sure that that is one of the things that you find some time to do as well. But I don't want to keep y'all for too long. Just wanted to chit chat about this a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to be coming live more regularly. So please send me all of the questions. I love being able to chat with you. I've been having an absolute blast in classrooms these past couple weeks and seeing some really good stuff. And I'm trying to get in all my observations before people start going to spring break, because I know spring break is coming. And then it's like after spring break, it's like we're cruising to the end of the year. So I'm so excited to be here with you. Let me know where you're tuning in from if you're watching the replay. And remember, you might be doing too much. Okay. It might be time to do a little less. Happy Black History Month, of course. And, don't be afraid to send this to one of your teacher friends or one of your leader friends who could use a little support and hear that perhaps we need to dial it back just a little bit. All right, y'all. Have a happy Thursday again. Happy Black History Month. And I'll hopefully see y'all next week.